manufacture candy and baked goods. That's CUP/VAR 16-02 for Scott and Teresa Sassi, Puddin River Chocolates. This time I will read the public hearing script. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please be prepared to step forward to the microphone at the appropriate time, state your name, mailing address, and interest in the matter. For those people other than the applicants that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please sign in on the sheet or speak up when we call for testimony. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. You may be limited by time for your presentation. Generally, the applicant will have a total of 15 minutes to speak. The proponents will be given 5 minutes each. The opponents will be given 5 minutes each. And those thought to be neutral on the matter will be given 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 10 minutes for rebuttal. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access and to become a part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify, even if it is only to concur with previous testimony. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter. I've been in Puddin River many times, so that's the... Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Okay. Does any member of the audience have any questions for any commissioner regarding conflict of interest or ex parte contact? Okay, the public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, we'll have the staff report, and then followed by questions by us. Then the will open public hearing for testimony. The applicant not more than 15 minutes, proponents not more than 5 minutes each, opponents not more than 5 minutes each, people thought to be neutral not more than 5 minutes each, and rebuttal by the applicant not more than 10 minutes. At that time, I will close public testimony. Then we'll have more questions, followed by discussion and deliberation by the commission, and no additional testimony unless specifically allowed by the chair. And then a decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure? Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Chair Savory, and good evening, Commissioners. This request is at 1440 South Ivy Street. It's the second lot from the intersection of 13th and South Ivy. It's about 400 feet south of that intersection on the east side of South Ivy Street. The property is owned R1.5, which is the medium density residential zoning district. The area that's both across Ivy Street is the same type of zoning and is developed residentially. And then you have large lot zoning that's south of this property on the same side of the street. And you have a low-density residential zoning that's at the back of the lot that's on the east side. The very corner lot has the unusual CR zoning, and that has the potential to be a mixed-use zoning, could potentially be retail-type use, would be very suitable for office-type uses, or a combination of office, retail, and residential, like a triplex or something, or residential over an office or a retail-type use. The request that we're reviewing is a conditional use permit and a major variance, and those are necessary because there is a home-based business proposed on the property, and it's defined in the code, actually in our definitions section, and indicates the criteria you must meet to be considered to be an appropriate home-based business. This particular use is considered to be a manufacturing type use for baked goods, confections, candy, and that terminology of manufacturing is listed right in the code as requiring a conditional use permit. It's a use just above what would normally be an outright permitted home-based business, and so that's why the conditional use permit. The variance application that goes along with this is directly related to one condition of the definition of a home-based business, and that the size of the building that they wish to construct, which is 1,800 square feet, exceeds the normal outright permitted accessory building use of 600 square feet. Therefore, we had them make a variance application so it was very clear to you that that standard is not being met with this particular application. With the variance application and the conditional use, especially with those combined, you have the authority to approve something different than the strict definition of what the outright permitted home-based business would be. You want to try to your satisfaction, find findings tonight that meets the rest of the definition of a home-based business, that isn't adversely impacting the residential character of the property and wouldn't result in some sort of use that would be detrimental to the residential enjoyment of the adjacent properties. And that be your primary criteria in trying to decide on this. So feel free to ask any questions that might be unclear in the staff report. This is somewhat unique in that staff didn't actually make a recommendation, although we did list possible conditions of approval should you approve this that we think would be appropriate for you to consider. And along with that as well, we now have a letter from Clackamas County that lists several recommended conditions of approval should you wish to approve this application that they feel fairly strongly about that should be included in any decision for approval. So they're at the back of the packet in your application here. In addition, we laid out on the dais just tonight, because it arrived this morning, the applicant shared that with us, and we appreciate it. And it's actually an application that's been made by the applicant to Clackamas County that is satisfying the first condition of approval in their recommended list of conditions. And it's to provide an application to secure an access modification for their second driveway that wouldn't otherwise be permitted on this property. They have two existing driveways. with the conditional use and the new construction proposed, they would try to make them come into conformance. Therefore, they're wanting them to make this design modification to maintain their second means of access on the property. The county has told me verbally and that they're all but will approve that access modification that they've made now to the county. And that's, I think, pretty evident in that list of conditions that they've supplied. So with that in mind, I might go through a couple other things in the application here. In staff's review, it appears to us with the square footage of the new building that in addition to 2 parking spaces that every residential use is required to have associated with the home, we feel that another 2 parking spaces is appropriate for the proposed business building. One of the conditions in the definition of home occupation is limiting the use to not more than 1 non-resident employee. So however many people live at the residence and may be associated with the home-based business is allowed. It's those that might come to the premises that they limit only 1 additional employee by definition. We noticed in their application to the county that they talked about 1 non-resident seasonal employee. And that's within the definition, and you have the ability to potentially approve additional employees if necessary. Staff did not feel like the size of the building is a particular issue. They have a very large property. It's sitting right next to the CR zoning that I explained earlier. There's a large buffer distance from where the building's proposed near the front of the property from the residences that are in the back. They made the proper applications to address the building size. So we're not really concerned about that aspect of the application. The variance criteria that are in the code are always very difficult to meet every one of them. The code does say they should try to meet every one of them. It's your discretion to decide how well they meet them and whether, if maybe it's not certain they meet one, whether that's causing any adverse or harmful impact in relation to what you're approving again, and that impact it's going to have on the surrounding residential character. The suggested conditions of approval that staff listed in the report, along with the recommended conditions of approval in the letter from the county, would be what we would recommend that you strongly consider if you're moving towards approval of this particular application. We did, there's one condition that has come up since we took input at the last meeting, and that's really related to sanitary sewer service to this property. The existing home is on a water well, and they have a septic system. So they're proposing a new business building that has the option of hooking up to those 2 private services or hooking up to the city's services, which the home currently doesn't have either. The condition that we think is important is that they gain approval from Clackamas County prior to issuance of a building permit if they choose to connect to the septic system with their new business building. That's something that they have the expertise to evaluate whether the effluent from that business can be handled by the existing septic system. And so I think it's important that if they go that route, that condition be included, and it's not really listed too well in the other conditions of approval. And that's staff's report for this evening.
Any questions for Brian? Hey, Larry, push on your little green thing there.
I didn't see any conditions where it required 2 parking spaces.
The parking space is, we may have missed actually listing that. They have an area that is mostly paved in front of, at a driveway basically, that's leading up to where this building's proposed. And appears that there's easily room for 2 parking spaces in that area. And so that may be why we didn't actually list it, because we thought it was readily available. Part of the issue related to that, however, is one of the conditions from the county is that they don't back out onto South Ivy. And so we do need to be sure that there's an ability to turn around on the site. And that isn't really that evident to staff in the site plan that's been submitted for our review. How they're going to do that, especially if there's someone already parked in the area, how they're turning around.
You, again, go over the what you were saying about the sewer?
Yeah,
How,
if they have a choice to connect to city sanitary sewer. If they do so, they'll be subject to paying system development charges for sanitary sewer.
okay.
They can also choose a separate water meter and water service, which is to Canby Utility. And again, I'm sure they'll charge them a system development charge if they choose to do that. In order to save money, they have considered connecting to their water well and their septic system.
But that is an option for them.
It's an option as long as we are convinced that the septic system can handle.
So they would have to have a septic inspection?
Yeah, provide information to the county prior to a building permit to have it evaluated.
Any other questions for Brian? Okay. Just to further along on that, just one last thing. So if they go with the hooking up to the city system, then they would have to upgrade the meter. I noticed in here that they would have to get a different meter of some sort?
Well, it's kind of an interesting situation as we're contemplating which way they might go, and I don't know that they've decided at this point. If they don't have city water service, our sanitary sewer SDC is based upon a water meter size, and they don't have a water meter. And so what I think would happen is we would assume that the house would be served by the smallest water meter if they had one, and that's what we would charge if they tried to hook to sanitary sewer, but not city water.
Any questions on that? Okay, let's, who is going to represent the proponents? If you'll step forward, state your name and address, and
Teresa Sassy, 1440 South Ivy Street.
Scott Sassy, same. Ask away.
no,
So
this,
basically,
you've got 10 minutes.
We
to-
have a shop existing now, 24 by 30. That shop would come down, we would make it 30 by 60. So, and actually, we would not be asking for 1,800, we'd be asking for 1,500. As far as the building, I have 8.5-foot eaves now, we would go to 10. It would be the same color as our house. So basically, once it's up, other than the newness, you wouldn't know anything was going on or different about it anyway. As far as accessibility, I have a 30-foot driveway. I could my driveway comes out like this, so I could probably, if I had to, I could make it 40. I could just take some more lawn out. What I choose not to, because it's already established. But if you can't turn around in my driveway, you shouldn't be driving. So you could take the biggest F-350 in there and turn it around 3 points and you're gone. There's more than enough room for parking. 2 spots, you could probably go 3. I've had 12 cars in my parking lot for just home barbecues and stuff. So, and we have the other driveway too. So I don't see that as a problem. The county wants us to make, right now we have an apron coming off of Ivy that is 16 feet. They want us to go to 20. So I'd probably come in, you know, I'd make it at least 4, 5, 6 feet further on. That's not a problem. The only thing we do have a question is that one employee, we would like to be allowed to have one more for seasonal, so it'd be 2.
Oh, one full-time, one seasonal.
Yeah.
Probably.
Is that
Yeah.
about
Most
right?
likely.
Yeah. And where we're at now, we're not going to have retail like we have over at the existing shop. It's just going to be a production base. The only thing we'll be storing there is jars and cheese and food and whatever we need to make candy and fondue, so.
You, since you will have neighbors, I assume that making candy is not exactly a noisy operation. It'll be during the day for the most part.
No more wine bar. The wine bar is going away, of course.
Which is unfortunate, of course.
It is, but
Okay.
I've dealt with the Department of Ag on this also. I actually had him come to the current facility, and actually I emailed him all of our plans. So he is signed off on everything because I'm HACCP approved, and I'm a processor, so I deal with Department of Ag, and he has signed off on everything, just for your information. One more little tidbit there. And we've got to be out of our current facility. So far, the date is February 28th. I know we're dealing with the time crunch here, and so we may be without a home for a couple months. But we've looked for 2 or 3 years for something to fit our needs in Canby for retail and processing, and nothing has come up. We've been kind of looking in Oregon City a little bit. We'd like to stay in Canby because this is our home. We like to serve our community, but you know, so this is kind of our first option. And I think it would be easier on our lives, actually. So, Jerry Nozine, I need to talk about the utilities.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
As far as the hookups, we would probably go right off our well with water. Sewer, I checked, I had a meeting with Public Works and Canby Utility. If we were to hook up to city sewer, city water, it was a ballpark of 30,000 plus, which I thought was unbelievable. A new electric line coming in would be 2,500. That I could live with. But the other two were just absurd. So therefore, that was the reason to hook up maybe off the well for the water, because we wouldn't be using that much water in there anyway. As far as septic, I have no plan of going into our septic system. That's a good system. I don't even want to disturb that. Jerry Nelzine told me about, it's called a little pump station. It's called a grinder. It's like the size of a heat pump that you bury with 3-inch line coming out the back. And at the back of our property in Dinsmore Estates now, there's a road, 14th Avenue, they stubbed a septic, and Jerry said that is more than adequate. We could run that line right back and go right into city sewer without disturbing the road and stuff.
Okay. Anything else? Any questions?
If in the future, excuse me, if in the future Ivy was to be widened, would there be any impact on your operation?
No, because they've already widened it once. My lawn used to go clear out to where the white line is. I think they only have, if I remember, 8 or 9 feet left, and that wouldn't, we're still, even with my new building, we're still 85 feet from the road, so.
What size delivery trucks do you see coming in and out of your property or your operation?
She has a chocolate delivery system maybe once a month, and it's like a little Metro van. That'd be it.
So virtually no impact on Ivy Street then thank you.
Any other questions?
Any adverse chemicals, I don't think, from food processing or anything like that?
Heather?
I'll just say I did speak with the fire marshal to see if he had any concerns with the engines getting in there and turning around and all that.
Thank you very much. Any other proponents? Any opponent? Oh, you're a proponent? I am a proponent. Okay, then step forward and give us your name and address. And
Thank you. My name is Mallory Gwynn, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce here in town. My address, however, is 5861 South Newman Road out in South Clackamas County.
we'll forgive you.
Traitor.
Thank you. Well, actually, it's heaven out there. What I would like to do is probably appeal to you emotionally more than anything else. The Sasseys have been an amazing force in Canby in terms of their presence as small business owners and their support of the community in numerous ways. I had a conversation with Teresa not very long ago, and her cry was just for help. This is I guess what I'd love to say is just, it would be great to make this easy for them as you can, keeping the law. But in terms of keeping them in town, keeping them in business, and that, I think for our business community, that's a huge step, and it speaks. I think if you were to approve this, I think it speaks well of being flexible, being interested in growing Canby in a productive and profitable way. Which is really important right now. The loss of a retail shop on downtown Canby, it hurts us. To hurt further and to not approve this would be just more, it would be sorrow upon sorrow, in my opinion. And so I appeal to you emotionally to look at the easiest way to make this happen for the Sasseys. They've worked hard. They work long hours. They've served us well. And maybe at this time, we can serve them well. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, any other proponents? Any opponents? Anybody that is neutral that would like to share their thoughts? Okay, and I will close any rebuttal to the non-testimony of others. So I will close the public testimony, and then if you have any other questions that come to mind. So I do actually have one on the idea that they would have one full-time employee and one seasonal employee. I don't know what season that would be, but right now.
November through February.
Beginning to look a lot like Christmas and Valentine's Day. So that would be my only thoughts on the number of employees, and that probably is not a big deal based upon the testimony for parking, because I was thinking about how the parking and the extra employee would work.
It certainly isn't going to go above the normal standard for the number of trips that are coming to and from this site for home-based business. That extra employee isn't going to bother that. It will have some impact on the parking. So now you might be looking at 2 or 3 spaces rather than just 1 or 2 on the site. But it sounds like there is room for that to occur. And that's probably good that it's not out on Ivy, although there's potentially room for parking on the edge of the street, I believe, out there as well. I don't know whether it's that safe, but there seems to be some room. I don't think there's any no parking signs on the street itself. I think you have the authority with the applications that have been made to vary that normal outright permitted definition. One thing you might want to consider that's in the staff report along those lines is if you approve this conditional use permit, you might want to consider relegating it to this particular owner and operator so it doesn't necessarily run with the land, because typically conditional use approvals, if a similar enough person bought the property and wanted to run a similar enough type of business, they would also be able to do that, unless you condition approval on this applicant only, so that it expires once they move and leave the property.
Would, as opposed to just making it a condition for the current owners, but if they were to sell the business, I mean, the candy business, can we make it a condition just for that type of business, as opposed to putting in a slaughterhouse?
It gets a little tricky when we do that, but I've certainly seen them, this kind of condition on conditional use permits before, in that you're not stopping someone from purchasing the property, seeing that there's an existing building that would be perfect for a home-based business, and coming forward and possibly utilizing it. But the question would be, would that 1,800 or possibly 1,500, if I'm still a little confused on which size building's happening here, would that be suitable to some other home-based business that we don't even know what it's going to be? Because normally that would be in violation of the size limit, and you don't know what those, and it'll be set up and there, and somebody might just move in and we'll never catch that, especially if there's been a conditional use that's allowing 1,800 square foot home-based business of any kind if it's not limited in some way to
Right.
this particular type of use, either with this or a future owner.
So we couldn't, it's not something that would come back to us if they sold their business and decided to move to a warmer climate, and another home-based business came in that did had more traffic or needed more parking or was noisy, that sort of thing. So that would not come back to us. 'Cause
Now,
we-
hopefully, we would catch it with a new business license
Okay.
as
Does
we
it-
signed off. But
Condition 6 cover all that, or not?
Condition 6 in staff's report, I guess.
Yeah. 'Cause it says, property owners only, and is not to be passed to other property owners or business
Yeah.
operators.
That's the one that I'm suggesting
Yeah.
that you at least consider.
So John, I think if we did change 4 to add 1 seasonal employee, and then just accept the conditions, probably would be
Right.
good enough.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions?
I think I would just say that I think that they've done their homework and have presented us with enough to prove that they really care about Canby and want to do business here, and I think it would be, we'd be remiss to not allow that to happen.
I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve conditional use permit variance 16-02 for Scott and Teresa Sassy, Pudding River Chocolates, in regard to all related variances be approved to help them establish their business, maintain their business, and further their business. We provide the requested add-on for additional employees, be it full-time or seasonal. I think they've adequately shown the adequacy of the relating to the impact on the surrounding area, traffic, water, sewer, et cetera. I think we should, I think the sewer hookup mandating that they do that be cost prohibitive, very restrictive on their business. So it sounds like they have adequately researched into doing sewer hookup. So I think I would recommend we approve that portion of it also. In regard to follow-on owners, I would rather like to keep the door open so we don't tie their hands to restrict them so that they're unduly impacted if they go to sell their business in the future. Keeping it open so make it as easy as possible in the future. And it sounds from what Brian said, any major impact would be caught at a review at later time anyway for the business license. So that is my recommendation, that we do a wholesale approval of this variance request.
Have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'll make a clarification. Do you want to add Clackamas County's list in their letter to us of their recommendations to add as conditions of approval? Because they're not listed as part of the 8 conditions that you were looking at in staff's report.
Right.
That would be one additional condition to include all of Clackamas County's recommended list of conditions as well.
Assuming Clackamas County does not come down with unreasonable restrictions on the requester.
I've reviewed those conditions, and,
There would be, everything that's going to be coming, you've seen already, is that correct, Brian?
right, and the applicant has seen them too, so you can ask them about them. They all appear to be doable.
Okay. And they're nodding their heads in agreement, so. Okay.
So be it.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good to go. There you go. Thank you. Any new business? Okay. Then we have final decisions. These are final written findings of previous oral decisions, no public testimony, so we need to reaffirm what we just did.
So we're going to bring back the written decision at your next meeting, since we didn't know what the outcome would be.
Okay, no one accused you of being a mind reader, Brian, so.
Exactly.
You know. So that will be after the first of the year, is that
Right,
correct?
that's correct.
Okay. Items of interest and report from the staff.
I've got two items listed on the agenda here that we are indeed canceling the December 26th meeting, which is a holiday for us. And then the next regular meeting is January 9th. And we currently have a Bristol rezoning from R1 to R2 on that agenda for you. And then the third item is just a special note that I know you all wanted to make, as well as me, to Christine Rocha. And so made a little letter on behalf of all of you and the staff here. And I'll just read it out loud real quick. A note of gratitude and thanks is in order for the time you've devoted to the Canby Planning Commission since April of 2015. You provided a great deal of effort and thought in your volunteer work that you performed for the Planning Commission and the citizens of Canby, and you have certainly garnered a great deal of respect from staff and your fellow planning commissioners to go along with your efforts. We appreciate your interest in safety with design and wanting to see the best possible development within the community as a whole. You've always been mindful of the boundaries and authority under which the Planning Commission must operate, yet always willing to speak your mind. Your presence and guidance on the board will be missed, and your knowledge a challenge to replace. A big thank you from all of us working to make land use decisions inclusive and transparent and moving toward agreed upon community standards and goals. We are sure it will be nice to have your Mondays free, evenings free, and to contemplate other planning activities for yourself. Thank you very much.
You will be missed, I gotta tell you.
I'll sit out there and bug
You just sit out there. I'll believe it when I see you out there. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Chris.
That was very
Thank you,
sweet.
Brian.
Yes.
So, any items of interest or discussion from the Planning Commission, anything that you guys would like to bring up? And welcome, Commissioner Farwig. How you doing? Good. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.